Hey, welcome back into the den and into today's episode focusing on mental health and the importance it deserves to be given. I don't know about you, but life has been pretty hectic lately, so actually sitting down and talking feels like a holiday. But this is a necessity, and one thing society continues to shy away from. For me, balancing sixth form, work, and learning to drive, which is one of the hardest things you will ever do, but the best, sometimes feels like a chaotic circus act. We definitely don't ask this enough, but guys, how have you actually been feeling recently in life?
Oh, well, big topic. So I'm all right. I'm plodding along. School's going all right.
Summer's nearly here, though.
Summer's nearly here. I don't know if I'm looking forward to summer. That's the weird thing.
Why?
So school is great. School is going well. School is my calm, happy place. Home, on the other hand,
the face on her.
Yeah. So I don't know how I'm feeling about that, but we move. We're okay.
Yeah. You alright, Earl?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, I'm looking forward to the summer holidays. Glad we're on the home straight.
Yeah. It feels like at the same time. I messaged one of my high school teachers the other day, and they were like, "It feels weird. You were literally here a year ago." And like at the same time, this year has gone so slow but so fast. And like the fact that one of my teachers the other day was like, "Next time I see you, you'll be in year 13." I was like, "Stop! Don't say that. Don't say that to me, because I'm actually gonna like break down in front of you."
Do you feel like the year's gone quickly?
The start was very slow for me because I felt like I hadn't really found my place here yet. And then kind of like after January, it's kind of just gone in a blink of an eye. Like my birthday feels like just yesterday, and it's like we're in July. That's just mad.
I know, it's gone so quickly.
It has gone quickly.
I feel like the same, like the beginning of this year dragged so slowly. It was comical.
Each day felt like a year.
It was
I was like, like a 6 period day would,
No, and then I've got like the almost 2 hour round trip.
Yeah, exactly. Especially,
yeah.
You've got it easier living closer than us.
Yeah,
can't believe you.
But people underestimate the power of actually checking in on those around you and just asking, just simply, how are you, or do you need help? I feel like we live in a society where we're driven by the stigma of being seen as weak for speaking out and feeling obliged to take on everything if someone asks you for it, even if we already have way too much to do and our to-do list is like an arm's length long. I'm not going to lie, I have been guilty and still am guilty sometimes of this, but I'm getting there slowly. The thought of saying no used to just scare me so much. Like, what would the other person think? Like, I've disappointed them. But we need to realise that that's actually important for giving time for ourselves. Like, self-care isn't selfish. And there is a fear of going against the grain. It's led to us, like the whole British stiff upper lip example, and saying we're fine when we're not. So, what do you think is the most damaging mental health stereotype?
I would say that a lot of the time people assume that mental health problems are going to be obvious. There are going to be specific signs that that are going to be easy to notice, and oftentimes they're not. More often than not, they're not very easy.
No, because you can put a front on and people can be unaware.
And sometimes you don't want to burden other people, so you kind of put on a kind of a sense of being well. But and people don't appear down all the time if they have mental health problems. It might just be in their home. So
What do you think, Lana?
So I think, thinking back to your idea of saying self-care isn't selfish, it's really damaging when if someone is spending a bit of time on themselves or trying to prioritise themselves, if you tell them that they're being selfish or they're being vain or they're being self-centred, I think that spending time looking after yourself doesn't mean you're self-obsessed, and it can be damaging. It could damage the confidence of someone who is trying to work on their confidence.
Yeah, definitely.
And you maybe don't realise that you're affecting them with what you say. But I think it should be more acceptable to spend time on yourself. And when I was younger, I used to be really, really confident. I was so confident all the time. And
you do seem confident now, though.
It's been an up and down.
Yeah.
I used to always like to do my hair and like to look nice and dress nice. And then It was once someone told me that I was being vain, and I was vain for wanting my hair to look pretty, and I was vain.
Why can't we do it for ourselves?
And I was probably about 9 or 10, and that stuck with me for years. And I'd be constantly thinking, "Oh my God, I am vain. I am self-centered," and then I'd never think of myself because I told myself, "No, actually, you're being selfish." And all stemmed from that one comment.
That is true. Like. That it may seem small, but that one comment could lead you to overthink so much more, because you're gonna still think like, I want to try this hairstyle, but what if someone calls me selfish again? What if someone calls me vain? But that is just the fact you were so young as well.
Yeah, like what if I look in the mirror and check if my hair looks okay? Is someone going to say something to me?
Exactly.
It's really silly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as a kid, like, you know, what a harsh thing to say.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's like going up to a kid who's like wearing a Snow White dress and be like, "No, you're not a princess. So take it off." And you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, they're so...
Yeah.
No, in hindsight, it's really harsh. And I think it happens a lot more than we realise. Or just people just checking to see if... Because people put on makeup in the morning to maybe kind of give themselves a bit of... feel a bit more confident, feel a bit better, have a bit of fun, some expression. And I think if people are actively, maybe they want to go and check, does my makeup look okay, does my hair look okay, is my outfit okay, those things aren't selfish. They are, that person wants to make sure that they look what they think is okay because it makes them feel better.
Yeah, it's feeling good in yourself.
Yeah, the same as some people, like, I never wear makeup, I don't really want to.
Neither.
So like
takes too much time.
Yeah, I don't really care, but that doesn't mean that I'm not looking after myself, or that I'm not self-centered or vain, because I could be, like, that's not a sign that you are.
I think for me, the issue of the stereotypes is that they're so ingrained into our society that it may seem at times impossible to break away, and like that's probably the fear of like admitting you actually want help. And like speaking out loud does need to be viewed as a strength, and we need to end the silence because it's too dangerous. And like it's the fact that like 1 in 4 people will experience like a mental health problem in a year, and people still think it's uncommon. And anyone, like you said, Elle, could put like a strong face on and pretend it's okay, like the fear of judgment or being alienated or like left out. But one of the things that frightens me the most is the lack of attention, especially men are given, because obviously men are given a stereotype that they need to be the leader, they have to stay strong and be the provider for everyone else. And they fail to see if they're suffering themselves, and like what if they actually want someone to look after them? What if they want, if they're suffering and they don't feel like they can speak out, then it's going to cause more damage. And I feel very strongly about the fact that why do men feel like they're feminine for asking for help? Like that, it angers me. I'm not going to get angry, but at the same time, it's like men do need this help too. And like it's also like the fear of like them being seen as a feminist. Like there's nothing wrong with being a feminist. A feminist is not a man hater. That's like something I'm trying to get people to understand more. And like I did an interview with Connor Southwell yesterday, and I touched upon the issue of feminism with him and in the media, and how he said when he walks into a boardroom it is predominantly white male cis like men. They're just everywhere. And I said, for me, he said, it's not just females who are underrepresented, it's like ethnic minorities, it's people in the LGBT community. It's like, because I said to him, if I walked into that boardroom, I would feel scared if I saw loads of dominant men there. And it's like the thing of like men have to be seen as holding it together all the time because like women are fragile and that type of thing. We have to be looked after. When in reality, men need to be asked, like, are they okay? And like it's scarily that the suicide rate for men is actually 3 times for one of women. And I saw that the other day, and it actually made me like shiver. But it's just, and it's like obviously like one of the main causes of like deaths of men under the age of 50. And we still fail as a society to view it as an issue. And I don't understand what it's going to take. And we shouldn't have to move any further because it's already bad enough of an issue. It does need to be solved. So what do you believe is the hardest myth surrounding mental health that needs to be solved?
I think the hardest myth I know this from the perspective of a young person. I'm not sure if this is something that carries through all age groups, but people viewing a mental health problem as being attention seeking.
Yeah.
You're just getting anxious because you want attention. If you have a panic attack, you'll get attention. If you're depressed, you'll get attention. And I think that invalidates people. It makes them feel like their feelings
aren't valid.
They aren't right. They're not. They're fabricated, or that they shouldn't be feeling them or shouldn't be expressing them. And it stops people, especially men, as Sophie said, from seeking help.
Yeah.
Because it will make them doubt themselves. It will make them think, right, well, actually, am I just doing this because I want attention? Do I actually feel sad, or am I just... And then you go down this huge rabbit hole.
You can't escape.
And you tell yourself that your feelings are worth nothing and that no one can listen to them. And that's such a crazy thing to be able to say to yourself, my feelings, no one cares. But it's so easy
it's just
to get to that
in
point.
Your head.
Yeah.
And I always live by this. You would never let, like, your voice, the stuff you sometimes say to yourself, you would never let your best friend or your mum or your sister receive that thing. So why are you letting yourself receive it? But what do you think, Earl, is one of the biggest myths around mental health?
This is kind of adding on to Lana's point, but another thing that can make us doubt our own experiences and make us invalidate ourselves is when a lot of the time people say other people had it worse. But that doesn't help anything, because suffering is relative. Like, by saying other people have it worse, you're not solving any problems, least of all the problem in the present, where you are.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a form of, I would say it's a form of gaslighting, because it makes you question whether your experiences are valid.
Because if you're, and it's like the thing of comparison. It's like if someone's saying, oh, someone's had it worse, you can't complain, and you're like, oh, okay, then it's kind of like they're trying to make you feel like your problem isn't as bad, when in reality, every mental health, no matter if you've had it, if you started feeling it recently or if you've had it for years, everyone's is still as valid.
Yeah.
And it's like we're putting them on a scale. Why has it got to that?
No, I think that it makes people feel almost as if they should feel guilty for feeling sad. If you tell someone, why should you be sad? You live in a country where you have a warm house and that's a right. You go to school for free, that's a right. You are allowed representation, and all of these things, and then you'll maybe start to feel guilty for feeling sad. You'll think, well, okay, I've got all these things that people in other countries don't have. Yeah. Do I really have the right to feel sad right now?
And you start to question your own worth, which sounds awful, but there's no other way of putting it. You start to go, oh, if I have got a roof over my head, then why am I complaining? And yes, obviously that is a thing to be grateful for, because obviously homelessness is still quite a big issue in our society today.
It's a huge issue, yeah.
But there is still other things. Like, it's like you said about people don't see the signs. We recognise physical illnesses so much more in our society. So we can see, like, if you have a broken arm, it's pretty obvious. But if you have something inside of your head, which I don't want to call it broken because that's not right. It's not something which needs to be fixed. It's something which you develop yourself. Like, that's what I said, like, everyone's solutions are all different, and it isn't like one size fits all. Everyone's way of dealing with it is completely different, and being a student sometimes feels like the world is against you and you're just on a broken fairground ride. And fairground rides may seem idyllic, like people used to think like being a teenager is like part of this movie, like the coming of age movies. People fail to see like balancing relationships, like whether that's friends or with other people, like exams, deadlines, finances, has led to days where I just want to come home and wrap myself in my dressing gown because of the stress and the pressure, and you just don't want to think about it at all. And some days, I'm not going to lie, like, I do come home and just have a cry. Yeah. And people need to realise that there's nothing wrong with crying sometimes. And people see that as a failure when you actually need to recognise that your body wants to cry, so just let it. Yeah. And because if you let it build up, it's just going to do more harm than good. And our society, like I said, recognises physical injury more. And for constant expectations and images we feel, especially due to social media, I think, right, we need to conform to, is one of the issues why it's got so bad. And like, but people fail to realise the importance of recognising it when we're younger, because like 3/4 of the illnesses begin before the age of 24. And the fact that we're 17, that shows like how important and present they are in the young people, but we still we don't recognise how prevalent they are in young people. But what do you guys believe is the greatest cause of stress? I know there's a lot, but if you could pick one.
If I could pick one, I would say it's definitely our awareness of the world around us. You touched on earlier about telling people you have no right to feel sad. There are people that are homeless, there are people that are starving, there are people that are going through wars and don't have a home and are having to flee their country. And it's the fact that we are now, it comes from a place of privilege to be able to have the resources to find out about all of this. But being aware that there are millions of people right now that do not know where they're going to sleep tonight, or billions probably.
That scares me,
or they don't know where they're going to get their next meal from. They don't know if they're going to be alive tomorrow for no fault of their own. They don't. It's the fact that we are so overwhelmed by all of this news constantly. You can go on your phone every 10 minutes and there'll be a new headline that's just as devastating as the last one, and it's just a constant pile. It never stops. And I think the whole 24-hour news cycle, although that's not a new thing for our generation,
it's quite damaging at the same time.
It is, because now it's on our phones, it's on social media, it's integrated into everything. Everyone's talking about it. And I think that it's not, we weren't made to have to hear all these horrible things every single day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's not normal.
And I was literally talking to like my mum yesterday, and literally live at break time, about how sometimes we're unaware of what is going on in the world because people shy away from seeing the news because they're scared of this constant negativity. And I was like, this is what I'm saying, like through the reason I want to pursue journalism is to create a positive outlook on it. It is to prove that there is still good in the world and it isn't all suffering, because I feel like that's the reason. If we see that there's other people suffering, then we're like, I don't want to add to that. That's probably another reason why we don't want to speak out. I don't know, but I just feel like you said, it's hard to escape it if this is 24-hour constant cycle.
No, I do. I find myself getting very bogged down by it, because I do like reading the news. I like to learn. I like to be aware.
Keep up to date,
But it gets to a point where, I mean, when I'm at school, it's different because everything's going so quickly. There's lots of people around. But then it's when I'm kind of on the bus, when I'm home on the weekends, I get completely like bogged down and just drowning in all of this, because I'm quite empathetic, and I want to. I see things on the news and I imagine, like, what if that was me? What if that was my little sister who's just lost their whole family? What if that was my parents that had just died in that war?
You feel helpless.
And I just can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about all these people that I've never met that are going through things that I'll never go through. And although I think it's very important for me to recognise the privilege that I'm in, that I don't have to experience these things, it's really unhealthy for me to take on.
You should be like, it's good to be aware of what's going on and knowing what is happening in our world, but at the same time, we just need to acknowledge it, know that if we can make a difference, we should, but don't let it overtake our own lives, because otherwise our lives will go on hold, and then that could cause more issues, if you know what I mean.
And then I mean, how are we meant to make a difference if we're so bogged down and we just feel so helpless? It's so easy to feel like, with I'm not going to get too political, but with the current state of the government at the moment, it's so easy to look at it and think, right, I'm a young person, I live in a town which is completely conservative, I have no vote, I have no voice, it feels like no one listens to me, and how am I going to change anything? I can't.
That's what I mean.
Tell myself I can't do it. There's no way I can do anything. I can't make a difference. What's the point? And then, but the problem is, me on my own, I'm not going to be able to make a difference, but there's probably a few other 1,000 people my age who feel the exact same way. But maybe if we didn't all feel like that, we'd be able to collectively do something.
Yeah, and I think for me, obviously I'm going to bring a little feminist approach to this, but with obviously the Roe versus Wade in America, obviously it's something that does need to be addressed. It is scary and it is damaging and it feels like we're just going back in time. But instead of feeling like it is a burden, which it is, but instead of having to feel like that constantly, we should convert this to a determination and motivation for want to come together. So it's just about changing that negativity when you see that news and thinking, actually, what can I change this to in order to make a difference instead? So what would you say is the greatest stress for you, Earl, as young people?
Well, first I was going to tie what you just said, because like to something we said last week about like being optimistic, which was in the context of student voice, but it also applies to mental health, because you've got to have some kind of positive outlook. It's good to have some positive resources out there to be able to feel like you can make a difference, but like also have a positive mental outlook at the same time. But what I was going to say, which is the greatest stress for us as young people, there are so many expectations.
Oh, definitely,
So many. There is so much. For one, academic pressure. Like it just goes up each year. I swear it does. And also, it doesn't help that like there is a stereotype of young people being lazy. It just doesn't head in. And also there's so much pressure from society for people to fit in. Like, and I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and mention what you said. You and Lana said earlier, Sophie, about men facing pressure, and they experience so much mental health issues that they don't talk about. And I think that's part of the conformist attitudes of society, like the whole culture of toxic masculinity. It's like you are pressured to keep that stiff upper lip. You're pressured to not talk about it, otherwise you're like, I don't know, society will see you as less of a man or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
And it's almost like a kind of horrible feedback loop of you feel sad, you worry that if you tell people you feel sad, they will think you're less of a man, so you don't tell them, and then you get sadder. And then it's just a constant cycle. You'll be completely buried in it before, and that's really terrifying.
But I feel like it's quite uplifting to hear, like, obviously your view on it, Elle, so it isn't, because I feel like people sometimes see these podcasts of like all women, and it's nothing wrong with it being an all woman thing, but men view it and go, oh no, I can't interact with that because there's not one of my species there, when in reality it doesn't really matter. Like,
we're all people.
Exactly, we're all people at the end of the day, and we all suffer. It's not like depression only hits men who are this colour and this sort of thing, and only anxiety hits women of it isn't like that. But I think it's time to shed some light onto this and get some boost some endorphins. So for me, I always have probably my 3 go-to things when I have a down day, which are normal, and we do need to normalise them. So in terms of movies, it's going to have to be The Breakfast Club. And I know it may seem really cringy, but the thought I could be living in the 80s as I watch it makes me so happy. And like Dirty Dancing, absolutely love it, the soundtrack, everything. Like, I want to be the one who carries the watermelon, okay? I do. And for me, music is so powerful in just like creating an escape, and mine varies so much. Like, I can pretend I'm at a festival, listen to Example and dance music, and then literally throwback dance party to S Club 7 or the Spice Girls. And I'm just going to say it because why not? But one of the most powerful things for me is hockey, because I play for Norwich Dragons, and it's brought me just so much confidence, independence, and just access to a community which makes you feel welcomed. And just going to a training session after a stressful day at sixth form is just exactly what I need. And so if you were to pick your go-to things on a down day, what would you say?
I think one of the biggest constants in my life is actually something really small, and it's literally just a hot cup of tea. Like, I can't get enough
British
of tea.
thing ever.
I know, I'm so British. No, but like in the morning, like to get me up for the day, I have to have a cup of tea. When I come home, like with all the stress from school, I just sit down on the sofa and have a cup of tea, and it's like all is right.
Sometimes it's just literally like the most simplest things ever. Yeah. Like sometimes for me, I just come in, I'm like, should I just get myself like a hot chocolate from a vending machine? Like that's just gonna make my day. Like mum comes home, how was your day? It was good. I got a hot chocolate. That's all I need. It's like sometimes like people feel like it needs to be this massive thing, but one of the things which is very powerful for me is appreciating the little things in life and looking forward to the little things. Like obviously big things like I'm going on holiday in the summer, something I'm looking forward to so much. But sometimes for me, like today, for example, I'm looking forward to going home and watching an episode of Dairy Girls. The most simplest things in life, but it is. But what is your go-to comfort movie, Elle?
Oh god, that is such a hard question. My go-to comfort movie is probably a Studio Ghibli. It would be Spirited Away. I would say that is one of my favourite movies. You should definitely watch it. I would definitely recommend.
I feel like I just got looked at both of you. Like, how did you not watch that?
The look of judgment.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I haven't heard of that, but I'll have to.
I would say basically like all Studio Ghiblis, bar like only like one or two. You could just like sit there and relax to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know if I could relax watching Grave of the Fireflies.
Not that one. I watched that one the other day.
Yeah, no, don't do that. But other than that,
Yeah, so what would you say, Lan, was your go-to?
Well, I'd like to maybe take two different kind of
that's fine.
looks at this.
Go for
it. There's my personal view and then there's like a scientific approach.
Okay.
I just want to, I guess, say to people who might be listening to this, it's okay if you're listening to Earl and Sophie say, oh, I'd like to watch a film and do and have a nice drink, and if you don't think that will work for you, if you think maybe I don't think just a drink is going to help me, that's okay. It's okay to feel like that, because obviously we all have days where a drink won't help us, but if you feel like those things you're almost beyond that, that's okay.
But I think that's what I touched upon earlier. Like everyone's not solution, but way of helping themselves is different. And just because we're sharing our ways doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. No. But like for you, what would you do?
It's really hard. I like to spend time with people, and I think when I get sad, I isolate myself from people, and it's really hard to force myself. So that's why I love coming to school, because I have to be around people. I have no choice.
Yeah.
And being around people really helps me. But I'm trying to almost relearn how to make myself happy, if that even makes sense.
Because it does change over years. Like something which would have helped me 5 years ago isn't going to help me now. And it's like you said about socialising is so important. And being alone sometimes, if you are struggling, can be good in some ways, because you can spend time with yourself and recognise those signs, but at the same time the silence and the being alone can be damaging. So it's just finding that right balance. Like some days I can go out and socialise, come home and feel so drained, I'm like, okay, I need my own time. But it's just finding that balance.
Kind of almost over lockdown. So at the beginning of lockdown, I actually got put on medication to help me with my mood, and I almost, because I was using that as such a crutch, and I guess I still am, that I've almost forgotten how to help myself. Like I literally don't remember how to. I just rely on this one thing. So that it helps me to think of it from more of a scientific viewpoint, to think, right, okay, the things that my peers are doing, they're not going to help. The things I'm reading online, they're not going to help. Like a warm bath, no. I'm sorry, no. I'm beyond a warm bath at this point. But what I think about is I actually spoke to Justin, a classmate of ours, who he gave a little presentation a few weeks ago about happiness hormones. And
I read his article on that, and it was amazing.
He wrote he's going to be in the magazine. So so there are, basically what he told me is there are 4 types of happiness hormone. There's serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, and they are all, you get them all in different ways, and you need a balance of all of them in order to be happy.
So you don't have to pick just one.
No. Okay. So we'll start with serotonin, and I know this is horrible for me to say this to a lot of people, but getting a tiny bit of exercise, just a little bit, just if you can, just push yourself. I know that obviously Sophie plays hockey. I can't. Some days I just think, you know what, I can't even run 100 meters without stopping. I'm going to be honest. I'm so unfit, it's comical. But even just having a little walk, if I can force myself to go on a walk, I always feel better. And I know that. I know if I force myself to go on a walk, I'll feel better. But I still struggle sometimes to do that. But going out on a little walk, having a jump around your room, listening to music and dancing.
Always.
That will get you some serotonin. So
also, like, I think there's research that says like being around nature boosts
Yeah,
your mood, doesn't it? Like, so if you go on a walk and you're outside, that would help.
Like, my house is surrounded by fields because I live in like middle of nowhere. But sometimes, like, just put my headphones in, even like a 5-minute walk to the shops and back. It's all I need. Come back and I'm like, oh, I'm fine.
Right, so the second is dopamine, and dopamine you get when you achieve something small or big, but small is the easiest way to get it on a day-to-day basis. So doing something, a little achievement, maybe cleaning your bedroom, or texting back that friend that you said you'd talk to, or finishing that one piece of homework.
Oh, that sometimes can be the hardest thing
ever. If you can do that, you will give yourself a little bit of a like, oh, I can achieve, I can do things. So for me, my little, I can do things is I knit a lot. So getting a row in the knitting, that just gives me a little bit of a like, you know
knitting
what?
Knitting is also quite therapeutic in a way. Because you're doing the same thing, and it's honestly, I can knit, but I'm not going to say. I don't want to say it in front of you because I can't knit at that level, but I can do it, but not to your standards. Okay, would you say it that
I'm
way?
going to say the same.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I remember I made a blanket for my guinea pig.
Blankets are hard, they're big.
No, I know. I literally just like made like a little. I was like, as soon as it reached the size of him, I was like, there you go, you're done now.
I don't have the patience. I've crocheted blankets. Crochet is quicker.
I want to learn to crochet.
I can't. I'm not very good at crochet.
Crochet granny square.
That's really hard, actually.
And I like kind of extended it and made a blanket out of it. It was quite small, but like that was one of my wins with crochet, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah. Something actually with crochet is Eve Bolter-Dolder, who may be listening to this, her first ever crochet piece was a granny square. They're really hard. That was the first thing she did.
Yeah.
She's just
Is that one of your friends or?
Yes.
I thought she was like a celebrity or someone. You were like, I was like, okay. I always like knitting for me. Sometimes, I don't know if you feel this, Lana, but it comes with a stereotype of being like an old lady activity.
Yeah.
When in reality, I love it.
Yeah. We'll get into this more when we have a chat about hobbies next year in a few weeks.
Yeah, we have there is probably an episode lined up for a 25-week plan.
Yes.
Still very strong.
So, going back to the happiness hormones, the next is oxytocin. So this is often called like the love hormone, and you don't have to be in love to get oxytocin. Having a hug, holding someone's hand, kissing your cat, like these things, always. It's physical touch. So going and giving someone a hug, hugging a pillow, even if you've got no one around, that will give you just your little boost. And going up to people, I love hugs. Like even if I don't know you that well and you come up to me,
if you want a hug,
if you say to me, can I have a hug? I'll give you a hug. That's fine. Oxytocin is, I think that's the one that people would get scared of, like, I could never, because I'm not in love, I'm not in a relationship. I don't have a boyfriend, or I don't really, me and my parents aren't close, I'm not hugging them, like those things. But it's a little simple thing, which it can help you with all the other little things that you've got going on. And then so the last is endorphins, which
probably the most well known
is the little dance party.
Always my favourite.
We can highly recommend this.
Very highly.
Doing something energetic, forcing yourself to get up, have a little dance. That will really...
What would you say you two is your go-to dance song? Anyone, if you have a throwback or anything.
Oh my god, right. I'm not really a big energetic music person.
It can be any music.
At the moment, probably the Ultra Cheese by the Arctic Monkeys.
Oh, I love Arctic Monkeys.
I love their new album. It's quite mellow.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit more, I like calmer, more mellow music, a bit more melodic. I'd say that, and just having kind of like I probably look like such a weirdo when I do this, having just like a kind of nice sway around my bedroom, try not to fall over. But
no balance whatsoever.
That definitely always.
What would you say? Have a bit of time to think.
I kind of like old music.
I
love a bit of ABBA. I love
ABBA.
Gimme.
Yeah.
Gimme.
Always.
Gimme.
That was when I went to see Years and Years in Manchester. They had this drag support act on at the start, and they Gimme came on. I was up there, literally. Oh, that's ABBA just boosts something inside me.
I could sing along to that all night.
Same, literally every night. But for me, if I choose like a proper cheesy one, it would be Reach by S Club 7 or like Wannabe by the Spice Girls.
Oh yeah.
Such a great tune. But like recently, I love Oasis. Oasis. Like, it is a bit mellow, but at the same time, I just love it. And like, I watched Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds at Glastonbury, and I love Black Star Dancing. I just love it. But I also like, there's this band which I sent to you, which is called the High Point Band, and they like, you might not have heard of them. They busk outside Primark all the time, and I went to the Night Cafe last year with Liv, and they supported, and I just loved them. They're so chill. Like, they're proper, just a nice, just vibey music. Like, my friend calls them the vibey hippie people outside Primark. I was like, no, they're the High Point Band, but okay, fair enough. But they're just so chill and stuff. And I think it's just like the difference of everyone has their own go-to song.
Yeah.
But just ABBA just sums it up. Like, all I want to do is go to Greece and live my Mamma Mia dream.
I mean, all this, I guess this has highlighted that a happy song, something that makes you happy, doesn't need to be the stereotypical energetic bouncing around off the walls, dancing, screaming. It can be something like calm and
the
chill.
most powerful song for me, every time I can listen to and I will cry, because when I had quite a bad stage in my life, my mum always recommended Fix You by Coldplay.
Right.
If you've ever heard that song, oh my god, I cry every single time. And sometimes when I just want to cry, I will listen to it, and I'm not afraid to admit that. Like, she always gave me that song, and I listen to it, and every time it just makes me think of that, and I cry every time. And also, it's called OK by Mabel, and it's like also called like the anxiety anthem.
Right.
And it's honestly, those two songs have such powerful messages, and they're like one of the most important things ever. So if you want to have a listen, I definitely would recommend. But I feel like the thing, just to sum it up, is the time to speak is now. You need to say no more if you can't cope with putting any more pressure on you. Keep in touch with those around you. Always check in. You never know, like a small "are you okay" could make someone's day. I think the most beautiful question is, like, what colour is your heart? I think that's such a beautiful question. I saw it the other day, and I honestly live by it every day. I just think it's the most beautiful question we've ever got. And we need to just put ourselves first, stop comparing, and stop taking on so much, and just appreciate the progress we have made. And if you could sum up what is essential for the future of mental health, what would you say?
So something really poignant that actually Liv said to me a few days ago was, you have to feel it to heal it. And I know that might sound, people might think that's a bit cringy, but it actually, you have to go through, you have to talk about your emotions, and you have to process them. It won't get better if you just leave it to stew.
No.
You need to do something.
It's a great word.
And
stew.
Just let it stew. It's not a very tasty stew though. But you need to say something. And that sounds, I'm saying this from a point of view as someone who has gotten quite proficient at saying something. It's really, I think that's the hardest part.
It's actually the first step
dealing
of saying,
with any kind of mental health
problem.
problem.
Yeah, and the first step of admitting you aren't okay is sometimes actually the most hardest thing to do.
Yeah, so I think if anyone's listening to this and maybe thinks, I probably should tell someone, but I don't know how, I always found for me that writing it down is a lot easier than saying it.
Or even a text.
Yes, a text, or writing a note, or writing an email to a teacher at school.
Yeah.
Because if you've got to say it, it's almost embarrassing.
Your
if
voice
you
may
say
shake
it.
and stuff.
But if you can write it down, you can read it as many times as you want before you show someone.
Exactly.
And you can make sure that it perfectly quantifies how you feel, and you're not going to get it wrong. You're not going to confuse them.
Even if you like don't keep a diary, it's like it enables you to like structure your thoughts and make it more concrete. It makes it something.
Yeah, exactly.
You know it's real.
So, what would you say, Earl, is essential for the future for mental health?
Wow. Well, Lana has summed it up quite
elegantly.
She has.
I know. I'm like, what do I say?
But I would add on to that and say, it's not a sign of weakness to speak up. And to be honest, I'm going to be honest, like, I've only really just been learning that because, like, I've only really kind of started to learn how to kind of speak up about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really before. I just didn't really say much about it. But now I kind of find it easier to go to someone about it. So it's just taking those first steps.
It's always the first step, which seems the biggest. Like, writing an essay, the first sentence may seem the hardest, but once you get into it, you'll realise it isn't as bad as everyone else made it out to be. But for me, it's time to ask, like, what if? Like, what if it does work out? Like, what if you did make that first step? Just think of how positive the future will be. Yeah. Like, what if you prove yourself? We just need to stop the self-doubt and prove the power we have for good. So, if you join us in the den next week as we explore the mass media controversy and beauty standards, and remember that everyone is fighting a battle you know about, so be kind always. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Cheers.